Hello and welcome. I am Kip Davis. I'm a biblical scholar and a specialist in early Judaism and the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's Friday, the 22nd of May at 2 o'clock in the afternoon here on the Pacific Coast. And welcome to my show. Ordinarily, this would be Vishanti, but
Yes.
she is off for a couple of weeks, and helping me out in that time is Ryan Cultastic.
Tis
So
me. Yes.
tis you. I have applause here somewhere. Here we go.
Big shoes. Big shoes to fill. Thank you. Glad to be here. Honored to be here.
Thank you.
Excited to be here.
Good. That's awesome. So I expect there's people in my audience who know who you are, but maybe not everyone. So do you wanna maybe just tell the good people a bit about yourself and your channel and the things that you do?
Oh, well, I'll tell them some of the things that I do online, at least. I'll do that. So I'm Ryan. I basically kind of walked myself out of a cult around 5 years ago when I had extra time on my hands because of COVID. And once it kind of hit me that I was lied to the entirety of my life, I started reaching out online and I found other people who felt exactly like me and I didn't feel so alone. And it made me feel more comfortable and basically sharing my own story and trying to find my way out of indoctrination. And now I kind of just enjoy it for shits and giggles. So I kind of just make content about all things deconstruction, my journey, etc. Mythology too.
I was going to say, you make a lot of content about mythology, and you seem to have caught the Canaanite myth bug pretty recently.
Yes, I can't get out of it, to be fair. I've dove in. I think dove in. And I'm drowning in it. And it's okay.
Wow.
It's wet in here and I like it.
So, and I think that's where and honestly, like I've watched a few of your things, and quite often they're like really good. And I don't mean to sound so surprised when I say that, but like,
you never know what you get. You're going to get when it comes to like mythology and how people are going to assess it, and if they're going to be pragmatic about it, or I totally get that.
Exactly. So it's solid. It's good. I think I was who was I talking to about this recently? It might have been Ember. I think so. I might have mentioned to her that no, it wasn't that you were going to be coming on the show. I mentioned to somebody, so I am teaching, I should probably pull that up. For those who don't know, I have to do some shilling here, but because that's the thing that we do. You got to shill. So
I mean, you're wasting your precious time if you're not shilling. I'm just saying.
Right, exactly. I mean that's part of the point, honestly. So if you're unaware, in about a week, I'm very excited about it. I'm going to be starting a brand new Hebrew class over at the religion department. The religion department, for those who are unaware, is connected to the people behind Religion for Breakfast, the fabulous YouTube channel, the gigantic YouTube channel with like over 1 million subscribers, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm really stoked because I'm going to be teaching Hebrew while also reading the first chapter of the Book of Jonah with everybody who's signed up. And we start in a week on May the 27th. That's less than a week.
So you can still sign up though.
You can absolutely still sign up. So awesome. It says here, enroll now. You can do that. It's 12 90-minute sessions, and you're going to learn the alphabet. You'll learn the basics of Hebrew grammar and sentence structure. You'll learn over 200 Hebrew words, and we'll be reading the Book of Jonah. So if that is something that interests people, I encourage you to sign up because I'm excited about it. I love reading Hebrew. I love teaching Hebrew, and it's an awesome way of like just really opening up your perspective and your understanding of the Hebrew Bible. Certainly, I was going to say the Bible, but it doesn't do much for the New Testament stuff. So
Right.
the Hebrew Bible. But I brought that up. I mean, not just to shill it, but because I think I was talking to Ember, and last week, Religion for Breakfast published like a promotional video for the course, and it had to do with it's a very, very good video, and it was all about Asherah and her place within Canaanite religion and
Yes.
Israelite religion.
I
And
saw
Amber,
that.
she mentioned to me, she said that she was talking to you and found out that you were irritated
Oh,
with this video.
she told you I was irritated.
It was getting like tens of thousands of views inside of a few hours, and you're like, you did the same thing. You did like the same video
I
weeks
mean,
before.
a lot of people pretty much kind of done this. There's not a ish ton of stuff about Ashera. Like, I do have some like the deep vibes, like the deep track stuff that people don't talk about because it's just not as fun, I guess, But so I get that, like it's been done, but yeah, I say the same things and people are like, "Who are you? Why do I care?"
Yeah,
I don't have
right.
anything behind my name, so what can I say?
It happens. That's often what happens. But anyhow, yeah. But you make some really good content, and I
Thank you.
think
I
people
appreciate it.
should go and check it out. There's a bunch of people who showed up already, and there's something. It's good to see everyone. There's something new that's happening here on the channel these days too, and I encourage it. But we're going to have to start to implement some rules within the last I think it was actually the last budget scripture Saturday, or maybe it was the last stream that Vish and I were doing. We decided that the ESV could use a rebrand. So my audience is helping with that, and I encourage everybody to continue with your suggestions, but there's some rules here. If you want me to consider your ESV rebrand, please follow the format. ESV with a colon followed by your suggestion. So Faith by Faith has done it right here. ESV,
Okay.
extra shiny Vupex, or Vulpex, maybe. Noise ending. Whoa, this is very clever.
It's
ESV,
true.
true. Education, sans Vish. This is temporary, by the way, guys. She's coming back soon, just in a couple weeks. John Gerderham, ESV, embarrassing social values.
Oof.
Also very, or embarrassing scripture verses. Now, listen, I know the temptation is there, but we're not doing this. This is, if you have suggestions for the rebranding of the ESV, I will take those.
That's all we're
We're
taking.
not interested in rebranding the King James version or the NIV or the NRSV or the Good News. None of this stuff. Okay, ESV. That's where we're going.
3
So
letters. It's simple.
it's a very simple, and it's amazing how much you can do with it. ESV edited scriptural values. ESV eradicate studies version. So yeah, keep those coming, everyone. Do I have any more here? Let's see. See, people are with the KGV and the NIV. That's just not how we're
Naughty.
rolling here. So okay. Oh, there's one from I was never here. ESV, Eagles shoot Valkyries. Cool.
Okay.
I was unaware that was a thing. And of course, Tree Clam Tad, who is probably Vish's biggest fan,
Oh,
but you know what? Listen, Ryan's great, and I am a
she's all
professional.
right.
So
ESV. Everybody say Vish. Sorry, guys.
everybody say Vish. There we go. Good. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming out I guess we'll probably we can just kind of get right into things today. So this is we're going to look at a video from Sean McDowell's channel, and it's a few years old. It's less current than the stuff that I usually do, and I found it, and then I wanted to look at it because it was actually in a folder with a bunch of video suggestions that I got from Apologia for a project he and I were working on together. So Tree Climb Tad for $5. Do you have any idea how long it would take to make a backronym for the Good News Bible? Like 4 or 5 days. That fair. That's true. But I'll tell you what, if that is something you really want to do, then and take the time to do it, Tad, go ahead and I will accommodate you.
Look at that.
But errors show. This is ESV. Errors show verisimilitude. Yeah.
Oh, they're on the big words in there too. My goodness.
Oh, ouch. ESV, eunuchs serving vasectomies. Good to see you, Chuck. Chuck, by the way, Ryan is one of my, I can't say he's a budding Hebraist anymore. He was in my first year class of Hebrew. So good to see you, Chuck. David Outcast is here. ESV, estranged supernatural viper. That's wow. ESV, everybody swas vakung fu.
Everybody swas
vakung fu fighting. Very good.
Oh my goodness, that was good. Good job.
That was good.
They won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop.
They won't. Evidence suppression version. That's very good, Dr. Clark Van Gilder. It feels like I haven't seen you around for a little bit. It's good to see you. James Campbell, ESV, extroverted sapien visions. There's a number of those right there in the text. So it makes perfect sense. Weirdo Rock Hyrix Evan, ESV, elephants singing in vineyards. Oh,
I'd listen to that.
I would. I can't say that that's what I think about when I read the ESV, but it might help them to sell some more copies, though.
Right.
They probably don't need any help. But...
Well, I mean, we could maybe get some gold ones and put your signature on it, maybe.
Holy shit, there's so many of you guys. We probably don't have enough time to go through all of them. Certainly not right now. ESV from me, myself, and I 4173. Everyone should vomit after reading it. Very good.
Just thinking about it, I want to vomit.
I know, right? It's that's right up there. So all right. So I pulled a video that was a few years old featuring William Lane Craig on Sean McDowell's channel talking about a book that he wrote. I'm just going to put this up here. So he wrote a book a few years ago called The Quest for the Historical Adam, a biblical, I almost said a biblical, but this really is this really is a biblical and scientific exploration. So, and honestly, I mean, anytime he's pitching the book on Sean's channel, and I got to tell you, anytime anybody wants to provide a biblical and a scientific, to mash together a biblical and a scientific explanation for Adam, that's a problem. Tree Clam Tad for $5. I think these streams count as auto elder abuse. Happy Friday, everyone. Besides Low Bar Bill, yes. Happy Friday, everyone, except for Bill. So maybe give him a thumbs down. I don't know. So Good. I keep skipping my first super chat, which is why I missed it.
We got you now.
Was that it? Was that the one?
Yes. Handling
okay,
business.
Good. Excellent. Brilliant. Okay. Cool. So so he's pitching this book. He wrote a whole last book about this. So we're going to look at some things that he has to say about it. But what I really want to key in on today is the thing that a lot of readers of the Bible want to do when they come to realize, when they come to the recognition that they can't just read the text as if it's a straightforward presentation of history and facts. They start to have to figure out ways of dissecting those parts that they're going to accept seriously as things that actually happen, and other things that are not. And the models for doing so quite often they tend to be very ad hoc. And so this is one of them. And I want to talk through a little bit today about what we do with the biblical text when it comes to this whole concept of mythology, when it comes to the entire concept of genre within the texts themselves, especially within the texts that present themselves as historical. Ascalon, ESV.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Ezekiel serves venison. Nice.
Yummy.
All right. Cool. So I think if I think we're probably good to go. We can pull the video up, and we'll watch this, and we'll pause it from time to time and talk about some things that are going on. All right.
Let me know if the sound is okay.
Yes.
We should have tested
please
that
chat.
part. I forgot.
Oh, well before we do start the video, we do need to one more. ESV, Edmonton skates valiantly. But you know what? They're very good skaters. I'll give them that. The Oilers certainly can skate. It's all the other parts of the hockey playing that they suck at. So but thanks, Miranda. Sorry about that, Ryan.
Go with the flow.
All right.
Well, my guest today is Dr. William Lane Craig, one of the leading Christian philosophers and apologists in the world. And he has a book coming out at the time of this recording next week on the quest for the historical Adam. He has spent a lot of time thinking, researching this, and is putting forward a plausible model of how he believes we can make sense of it. This is such a hot, divided topic. Our goal today is to get clarity of where you're coming from, Dr. Craig, why you conclude that. And then I know you would invite criticism and feedback once people understand where you're coming from.
The book In Quest of the Historical Adam is the fruit of my work on the person of Adam and Eve and the subject of human origins.
Okay, let's pause it there. First of all, I'd like to point out that this is not a controversial topic. It's really not. I guess in a world in which Sean and Craig exist, where you live and die on the facticity of the biblical text, this is probably an issue. But for most people, they just don't care. I don't think about whether or not there is an historical Adam. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm sure there's some who really like that's close to their heart to know their origin stories. I know the J-dubs are pretty hell-bent on that being the actual like true story. But he said he put at least the gentleman who's hosting, what's his name again?
Sean McDowell.
Sean. It says it right there. Hello. Sean said he put a lot of work and research into this book. I'm just wondering, like, how much research did you really need to do? to connect Adam like to us. I mean, it just kind of sounds like something you'd make up in your head, and you'd be like, "Yeah, look how much research I did." Am I wrong?
I think you're right, and this is like Bill's a theologian and a philosopher who dabbles in biblical studies and science, because I think that's what a lot of theologians probably end up doing, is having to marry a variety of separate disciplines. I wish I lived in a world where I didn't know who Sean McDowell is. Well, yeah, and I'm sorry to have shattered this world for you, Ryan. I feel terrible about that. So, because now it's all downhill. But quite often, when you're trying to work in multiple disciplines at once, what ends up happening is you end up doing a disservice to both of them, just because we can't all be experts in everything. And the philosophers, theologians, especially those who venture into Christian apologetics, tend to take this approach that they have to know, and they have to sort out how all of these things fit together, connect together. So, I guess naturally, in view of the scientific origins of humanity, you have to sort out how that works if you're gonna read the Bible and see that everything began with the creation of Adam.
I mean, it says it, so there's no getting around it because it says it. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure what research needs to be done, because I'm convinced.
Oh dear. Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see how you feel when we're done.
Oh yeah.
Another super chat from Tree Clam Tad for $5. Thank you very much. Very excited to hear opinions from the Nepo baby who works at the university that can't spell Viola correctly, and Bart Ehrman's Eddie Brock. This is very good. Very good. Tree Clam Tad. I think Biola is like an abbreviation for the Bible Institute of Los Angeles, is what it used to be called.
I see.
Yeah, I think the school was, I think the school itself is about 100 years old, and you'll be shocked to learn that it's hard to get students to want to come to a school that has institute in the name.
Institution.
Yeah, so they felt the need for a rebrand. It's Biola University now, I think. Just like the ESV.
Yeah, I think we could probably come up with something better for that.
Better for Biola too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's hear him talk a little bit more about his book.
Young Earth creationists who believe that the world was created around 6,000 years ago in 6 literal 24-hour days, who believe that a few thousand years ago there was a worldwide flood that exterminated all terrestrial life on Earth, who believe that all of the world's languages stemmed from confusion at a Babylonian ziggurat called the Tower of Babel, are going to think that I'm compromising on these biblical truths. On the other hand, there are a great many people who think it's absurd that there could be an original human pair from whom all humanity is descended. They would say, at best, they were just 2 people in a wider population of thousands of people at that time whom God had selected. And then the people existing today are all descended from that pair. And they would say it is literally scientifically impossible. Dennis Venema, a biologist who wrote an influential book on this subject, said we can know with heliocentric certainty, that is to say, as certain as that the sun is at the center of the solar system, that the human race is not descended from an original human pair.
Oh, okay. That's a good point. Hey, Ryan, were you a young Earth creationist?
Yes. But then eventually they kind of moved out of that and said that, well, we don't know exactly how old the Earth is, but we believe that it's more than likely we still come from Adam and Eve. It's just the creation. There's a larger separation of time. So maybe one day isn't like 24 hours. One day is 1,000 years. So it's actually like 6,000 years. It's the young Earth. So that's how and then they just kind of kept spreading it out to where it's like, well, it doesn't necessarily matter as long as we know Adam and Eve. So I guess they realized science wasn't cutting it anymore, and with the J-dubs, they change stuff so often, you almost forget what you used to believe. Yeah, they changed stuff.
Oh my goodness!
There's a lot of stuff that's way different than when I was a kid, and I got to keep up with it because they just have new light.
Holy smokes!
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. So this was just like these were community decisions that were made, and you guys just went along with whatever was. I mean, I guess because that's the model, right?
Yeah, you actually think it's a great thing. It's exciting. Like when you get an announcement that there's going to be new light, you can almost feel the excitement in the air, because that means like God was speaking to somebody to some extent. Like his Holy Spirit was with somebody. So it's like, oh my God, there's a revelation. What could it be? And it always makes it sound like it's something like good for us, but it's really just beneficial for the organization.
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
Wow, that's very interesting. Boy, and I've never thought through it from that perspective before. Wow. So I mean, Craig makes this distinction here, right? Certainly within evangelicalism, and that would include a bunch of offshoots and cults like the JWs. You've got these two camps of like young Earth creationists and then probably old Earth creationists, but they're still beholden to this idea of there being an historical Adam, that Adam and Eve, this story in the Bible, has to trace back to something that actually happened. He'll talk a little bit more about why that's really important. He did mention, one of the reasons why I held on to this clip is because he mentioned a biologist by the name of Dennis Venema. Dennis Venema was a professor of biology at Trinity Western University when I used to work there. So,
okay.
Yeah, I got to know him a little bit. And he, in the time that he was there, this is an evangelical Christian university, was very concerned. Yikes, that sounds bad. Faith by faith.
Gotta go.
You gotta go when you gotta go. He is very concerned as a scientist, as a biologist, that and as an evangelical Christian, that there is a consistency and a balance between his scientific work and his devotional confessional life. So he worked very hard when he was at Trinity, and he was part of, I think he might even be a founding member of the organization Biologos, which is like it's like an organization of evangelicals and eat some vultures and conservative Christians who maintain that the science behind evolution is totally legitimate, and we should stick with that and build our theologies in such a way that are compatible with that. And I remember having this conversation with Dennis himself when I was still working at the school. I'm not even sure if he's still there or not. But he told me this. He's like, as he says, the best evidence suggests that the smallest human population was about a few thousand individuals. That there never was just a single pair, right? So that
with our luck, we'd have been wiped out. Especially me with like the Oregon Trail. Like, I don't know if y'all played that game. I never won. I was never able to get off that trail alive. I always had dysentery or something like that. So I'm just saying, if it was only me and some dude, like, we aren't surviving, people. Like, I'm so sorry, but you're not going to exist.
right.
I love you.
Yeah.
But sorry.
So yeah, no, it's a very good point. Just our very survival depended on the numbers. So Ryan died trying to ford a river.
My wagon wheels fell off. Boy, it was a disaster.
They did. Yeah, but even a guy like Dennis, right, had to sort through a way of maintaining that there's something historical within this story of Adam and Eve in Genesis chapter 1. Not that it's a clear presentation of everything that actually happened, but that there was a first pair of humans who were they gave birth to the soulish species, I guess. I don't know. It was always, that part was always very fuzzy, right?
Yeah.
So and I think that's the part where people struggle with it the most. I mean, in one way I'm grateful that at least if people like Professor Venema are about promoting critical biblical scholarship insofar as handling the text and understanding, how to read it, right? But it just there's still something there about marrying the text to science and trying to combine these things and hold them in place together. Sometimes you just can't do it. Sometimes you just have to step back and recognize that a lot of these myths are just completely made up.
They're trying to make that baby happen.
They sure are.
They really are. They're trying to force it, and it's not compatible.
Not compatible. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can hit play again, I think.
Continue on. Okay.
Yep.
There's a ton of debate about the historical Adam. It's one of the hottest questions in the intersection of science and faith. But one question is, why does the historical Adam matter so much? Because it wasn't addressed, as far as I'm aware, in any ecumenical council, such as the Nicene Creed.
Right. For those who hold to the doctrine of original sin, that is to say that we are culpable for Adam's sin, or that Adam's sin corrupted human nature and we all bear that disease, the historical Adam is absolutely crucial, because if he is merely a fictional character that never existed, obviously we cannot be culpable for the wrongdoing of a fictional person or be corrupted by his fall. Now, I myself don't hold to that classical doctrine of original sin. I think that is neither taught in Genesis 3 nor in Romans 5. I think what Paul teaches is that Adam was the floodgate through which sin entered into the human race, and then sin spread to all men because, as Paul says, all men sin. Now, if that's right, it means Adam has to be a historical person, because again, if he were purely fictional,
Does that sound like a distinction without a difference to you?
Oh my goodness gracious. I it's the way that he walks it through. Well, I mean, Adam has to exist because Paul said he existed. So therefore, bingo bango, if Paul's wrong, then everything's wrong and we're screwed. So
Yeah. And I feel like he's equivocating on this point of it's not it's not original sin. It's that sin entered the world and then infected everybody. Like
I don't I honestly was struggling to differentiate what he was trying to say because it just sounds like the same thing just said differently.
It really does.
Right? Really okay, does. I didn't know if I was crazy or not.
No. And if somebody in the chat, help us out, chat. If you can understand this, then please help me.
Language.
Understand what Craig is getting at here, what difference it is he's attempting to point to. Tree Clam Tad for $2 says, why does the historical Adam matter? It doesn't. Yes, exactly. Thank you. It just doesn't. So Joshua Geese for $5. Joshua Geese, one of my current Hebrew students.
Nice.
It's that Adam. He's so hot right now. Zoolander, probably.
Yeah. Just so
that was Mubatu, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that have you not seen Zoolander?
I have, but it's been like I mean, I don't remember when that was, but it's been a while.
Seriously, for a long time, I think Zoolander might have been my favorite movie for quite a while.
Wow.
But yeah, this was Mugatu. This wasn't Derek Zoolander himself. Mugatu, yes, thank you, Eric Mickelson. But that's cool. That's fine. I think he was saying sin spreads to all men because all men sin, i.e. it spreads when someone personally commits it, not by Adam's sin being imputed to them, I think.
So catch it?
So, or is it just that because Adam was the first one who sinned and then after him
Pandora's box.
Yeah, something like that, eh?
He let the cat out of the bag. And once that pussycat got out and it was curious, everybody was asking these questions and they just they sinned because they were all up in it trying to figure out. Yeah, sorry guys.
Pussies are trouble, y'all.
They are. They really are. Be mindful of your pussies.
Be mindful of your pussies. All right. Yeah. Okay. So, well, thank you. For that, for helping us to sort that out.
I think that was yeah. He's just talking about generational trauma. That's really all this is.
That's true, right?
It really is true. Genetically, yes, we carry trauma. Like it's wild. I didn't know about that, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, this is something I have. All three of my children are adopted, and this is something that you learn about when when you go through that process to recognize, especially if there's like intercultural elements in your adoption too. So yeah, it's really important. It's a thing. So someone clip that. Thin with extra steps. Yeah,
I like that.
All right.
Extra steps. That's fun. Because I need more to do. So okay.
Do you maybe want to bump it up also to 1.25?
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you that. One of the things I forgot to ask you. Okay. Yes.
That's
cool. All right, you ready?
Let's do that. Yep.
Then sin could not have entered the human race through this individual. So I think that requires a historical Adam. And I also think that the consequences of denying the historical Adam are very serious. They send reverberations through your theology that will affect, first of all, your doctrine of inspiration and then your doctrine of Christ. If it's true that Paul, for example, teaches that there was a historical Adam through whom sin came into the world, and yet that is false, then you have to say that the Bible teaches falsehoods. And that is going to require you to revise your doctrine of inspiration in such a way that inspiration is consistent with the teaching of error. Moreover, since Jesus plausibly believed that Adam was a historical person, you're going to have to explain how Jesus can be divine and yet hold false beliefs. One of the essential...
Okay.
Oh, God, oh my, help me. Oh, help me. Oh.
Do you have anything to say about that before I go?
So much. I mean, honestly, it's the way that he's able to say, well, this has to be true, because if it's not true, he's just saying the quiet part out loud, because if it's not true, then we're going to be screwed. There's going to be reverberations felt. So let's just say it's true. Oh, look, problem solved, guys. I mean, hey,
yes,
bingo,
there
bango.
you go. Yeah, it's about protecting the priority are the doctrines. This doctrine
100%.
of inspiration, this particular type of Christology. I have to believe in historical Adam, or else the whole thing falls apart. Exactly. And I think that is it is a terrible argument, Templar Warden. Exactly. So I take considerable umbrage with Craig's characterization of this as a breach of doctrines of inspiration, because I was a Christian for most of my adult life, and I held to a form of a doctrine of the inspiration of Scripture that was not insistent on it being correct about everything. Inspiration takes all sorts of different kinds of forms. Well, very shortly after I arrived in grad school, I was at a social event, and another student explained it to me like this, and I'm sure people have heard similar things too, but this was something that really helped me through this issue as I was working through it in my own studies. And he said, he used the parables of Jesus as an example of this. He's like, you've got maybe one of the weirdest one is the parable of the 10 virgins and their lamps. He's like, take that parable, for example. How important is it to you that there was 10 virgins out there with their actual 10 lamps and half of them, didn't make it to the groom's home? How, like, if this is something that really happened or not, how important is that? And I'm like, not at all, because that's not what Jesus was doing, right? Jesus is telling stories as a way to make theological points. And if you shift your thinking into recognizing that huge chunks of the Bible are stories in the service of broader theological points, that's all this is. And inspiration covers that, and maybe even speaks to it more directly. Stories that have been inspired by other stories that have that provide deeper meanings about broader actual truths in the world. It has nothing at all to do, or at least it doesn't have to have anything at all to do with like facticity or accuracy or historicity or precision. There's varieties of theological models to cover this. Tree Climb Tad for another $5. Thank you very much. Y'all ever see a take so bad you are forced to immediately go to sleep? Austin Walker, yes, just now. Good night, Tad.
Very bad take. My goodness.
It is a very, very bad take.
It's lazy.
It
sounds so lazy to me. Like I'm just going to make up a story as I go. Like my kid said, please tell me a bedtime story, and whatever comes out of my mouth is like, there we go.
That's it. So, all right, let's hit play.
Properties of divinity is omniscience. And an omniscient person cannot hold false beliefs. He only believes truths. So if Jesus believed falsehoods, then how can he be omniscient? How can he be divine? You're going to have to revise your Christology in such a way that
you've been reading, especially the Old Testament, pretty closely now for a little while, Ryan. Is God omniscient, even in the view of the text?
No, I mean, right in the beginning, they give it away. God's like, "Where the hell are you?" It's like, right, hello, he don't know where his people are that he just made, and there's only one place that they could be, and he don't know where they are. I mean, come on.
Yeah, this is not a biblical doctrine, and I would even venture to suggest that in the New Testament, I don't think that's clearly a perspective of any of the actual authors themselves. So no, you're just fundamentally wrong about this, William Lane Craig.
But there's so many things that technically Jesus, if what the Bible says is, what Jesus said, there's so many things that Jesus basically got wrong because they've either twisted a prophecy or scripture or whatever, or, I mean, Moses, hello. So now what? If Moses isn't real, then does everything now fall apart? Is it the same reverberation? What happens?
Yeah, that's something that is that particular point is very, very important to a number of people as well. But it's a problem. You have to introduce these elements to the text that just aren't there in order to maintain them.
Yeah.
But the big God-breathed event with Adam did not lead to perfection in any senses. So evangelicals thinking it means infallible text are being silly. That's a very good point. That's something else too that this is and what Dr. Clark Van Gelder is keying in on here is the fact that the word from which we get this term inspiration, it's a Greek word, theopneustos. And it's a compound word. It's formed from two separate words, God and breathed. The text is God breathed. There's a variety of ways to understand what that means. I think far and away the best one is to look through the text and see the places where God actually breathes in order to see what the effect of that is. And over again, it's not that common, but over and over again, it comes back to the same thing, that this is about God infusing things with life. He breathes into the man, and the man becomes a living being. If the text is God breathed, it's a different kind. It doesn't mean perfect. Exactly. Just as he said, when God breathed into Adam, he did not become a perfect being. He became a living being.
Maybe God had bad breath. Sorry.
Oh, ouch. That could be.
Brush your teeth, God. Just saying.
3 times a day.
I mean, if he's perfect, that's the regimen. The dentist.
Yes, exactly.
You want me to play?
All right. Yes, please.
That Jesus could hold or seemingly hold false beliefs and yet be divine. And so I do think that there are very, very serious reverberations that will result from the denial of the historical Adam.
Would you put the historical Adam then in the same category as the resurrection? Both you and I have written books and defended it. 1 Corinthians 15 is clear. If Paul is not risen, our faith is in vain. Would you say similarly, if Adam is not historical, our faith is in vain, or would you qualify it differently?
No, I think that would be really misplaced theological priority, Sean. I would say that it would require you to revise your doctrine of inspiration and your Christology, but by no means would the denial of the historical Adam make you a heretic or separate you from salvation. Suppose my proposal doesn't work. Suppose we're stuck with one of these worst case scenarios where the Bible teaches that there was a historical Adam and yet there wasn't one. And I try to show that even given that worst case scenario, there are moves that we can make to preserve Orthodox Christian belief, even given those reverberations.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing he didn't answer the question, but this is one of these questions that perplexes me in a variety of different ways throughout this whole conversation. When I hear him say it's fundamental, maintaining a commitment to the historical Adam is fundamentally different than a commitment to the atonement. In terms of whether or not these are deal breakers. I often come back on why. If it's, I mean, he has already Petite Flower. He debunks himself. So yeah, yes, thank you. Exactly. He's already made the case that you have to commit to some form of the historical Adam, right? But then says, it's no, I guess it's not that important. I don't know.
Yeah,
are you talking?
You got to throw you have to throw inspiration away and doctrine away if Adam's not real. But then it's not that important, and it isn't as important as I just said what I said previously. Now it's like, no, it's okay. Confusion, but this all makes sense to the Christian mind, which is absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
I'm going crazy wanting to shake him. And the Christians are like, oh, wow. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Oh, wow. Listen to that. So smart.
So smart. All right. Let's hit play again.
Begin my quest of the historical Adam with an analysis of what our biblical commitments are as Bible-believing Christians. What does the Bible commit us to about the historical Adam? And I think this is very important, Sean, because it avoids the error of concordism. Concordism is trying to read modern science into the Bible, trying to read it in between the lines. And that distorts the teaching of the Bible. It makes every generation able to read their contemporary science back into these narratives. And so I begin by just bracketing science altogether, just laying it aside and saying, let's look at these narratives and ask ourselves, how would they have been understood by the author and audience at the time that they were written? And it's only after trying to determine what our biblical commitments are that I then turn to the question, all right, are those biblical commitments compatible with the deliverances of modern science, history, and linguistics?
So again, yes, but no.
Oh my God. Oh, that
bracket is really... science. Stop. Don't, bracket science. Science doesn't have anything to do with this. But then after you've carefully read the text, you've got to figure out a way to dovetail it back in with science. Like what are we doing?
I don't know. We have to be. I guess we biologically have to. But isn't that science that you're saying we have to? Like, what's happening? Is it not scientific, or is it?
Exactly. I was right with him for the first little bit there, because I mean that's my approach, right? This is not the Bible is not a scientific text. Science only when it's convenient for me.
I like that.
The Bible is not, and I would say that I think people like Craig have a selective view of how they. Lots of these apologists do have selective views of how they understand the science. For him, for example, I suspect he's like fine with biology, totally on board with plate tectonics and geology and physics and some of these hard sciences. But the minute you start to get into sociology or anthropology or archaeology or history, at that point, Craig is no longer bracketing anything. And, as I said, it's selective. It's cherry picking.
It's to the umpteenth degree. honestly. What he chooses to be, like what he in his head thinks has to be real, and what he says is important, and what he says the Bible's trying to commit us to, is just like, again, interpretation. The next scholar will say something completely different. Okay.
Exactly. All right.
I would be disingenuous, Sean, if I were to say, I don't want the young earth creationist interpretation to come out true.
Okay.
To me, that is a nightmare. My greatest fear is that the young earth creationist might be right in his hermeneutical claim that Genesis does teach those things that I described earlier. And I say that would be a nightmare because if that's what the Bible teaches, it puts the Bible into massive, I think, irredeemable conflict with modern science, history, and linguistics. And I don't want that to happen.
Is this just how he sells books and stuff? Like, is that what he's doing? He's like, listen, guys, I have a secret here, and it can't be this, but, you know, I have the information right here, what it really has to be and what it means. Like, he's just a good salesman, I guess, or terrible.
Yes, he is that, but I don't know. I think he believes. I mean, I think he's
into it.
He believes this. I think he's into it. I think he believes this stuff too, right? Allegedly, Fred, for 10 Australian dollars. Thank you very much. William Lame Crap saves Jesus.
Jesus saves. Please save William, Jesus. Thank you. We'd appreciate that.
Tree Climb Tad for $2. Anthropology, biology, history. Sounds communist. It's very bad. That's how you know it's bad. That's right. So, but like there is an urgency here too, right? I think there's a fundamental recognition in what he's talking about here that there is, and I'll just limit it to, there is an historical problem with the text if you're going to approach it from the perspective of pure history and science. And that's what's creating this cognitive dissonance for him, right? The young earth creationists can't be that can't be it, because of how that contradicts the things that we actually know about science. However, the reason this is such an urgency for him is because many things that the young earth creationists do, not everything, but many things that they do promote when it comes to reading the texts are naturally derived out of the text. I was just on Monday, I think it was this last Monday, I was on Joe's channel, Joe the Kentucky Atheist.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this very point with respect to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Lots of theologians, you mentioned it yourself, the JWs came up with what did you call it when they come up with like a new light.
New light, yes, it's revealed.
Right? Yeah.
God reveals.
And at one point,
brighter, it means you're getting closer to the truth.
Okay, nice. And at one point, they made a change. They shifted to thinking to promoting this idea that those individual days mentioned in Genesis chapter 1 are actually longer periods of time, right? This is not the young earth creationists are determined that these are 6 24-hour days, and they're right. They're absolutely right about this, because in Genesis 1, the text defines the limits of the day for us. That's the first important point. There was evening and there was morning, a first day, a second day, third day, and so forth.
Right.
But secondly, one of the driving points of the narrative in Genesis 1 is the importance of the Sabbath day. The seventh day is every day is numbered 1st through 6th. The seventh day is not. Seventh day is called Shabbat, the resting day, right? And this is why it's so important, because God rested on the seventh day. If you are going to change the text that dramatically, then that rather puts the whole idea of the Sabbath into
Well, pickle.
Into a pickle. Oh, you have a pickle, don't you?
I do have I actually have a pickle that's
she
napping. She's napping behind me. I don't know if we can see her.
Oh, there she is. I kind of see her.
Wait, my big legs are. Oh, pickle! I'm so sorry.
Yay!
I kicked her. I didn't mean to kick you, baby.
That's my fault. You can blame me, pickle. That was
the abuse she has to go through for
terrible
being on famous. You know.
It came to mind because you made an awesome music video about your pickle.
Oh yes.
One time.
Well, because I love to play with my pickle, and you know, if I had a choice, what I could do with my day, it would just be playing with my pickle. Right, pickle?
That's excellent.
She don't mind. She would do anything for a pet, anything for a treat, anything for a pet. She's a good girl.
Yeah. Nice. Excellent. All right. So yeah, I think we can continue. And now he's going to start here fairly soon, getting into some of the meat of this that I wanted to set some closer attention on.
Okay. Let's get into the meat, because I'm kind of hungry.
So
okay.
Yes, it's true. I don't want young earth creationist interpretation to be right, but nevertheless, I really do in the book struggle to be as objective as I can in saying, what did these narratives mean to their original audience when they were written and read?
Did he even try? Like, did you actually even try? Because I just feel like you didn't try whatsoever. He focused on just them having to be the first, and then that was all he focused on, and didn't ask any other questions.
That's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Meng Sebai 86 for €5. Thank you very much. I'm not for burning books, but some books calorific value is higher. Now, yes, that it's intellectual one. That's very true.
Yeah. Some are diet. You're not getting much nutrition from them. Just saying.
All right. Okay, so here he's going to start talking about his approach to the Bible in terms of its original setting and purpose and audience.
Refer to Genesis as mytho-history.
Genesis 1 to 11.
1 through 11.
Sean,
good.
The primeval history from the call of Abraham in chapter 12 on, you have straightforward historical narrative. But Genesis 1 to 11 is acknowledged by every New Testament commentator to be apart from the rest of Genesis, to be a special sort of narrative and a peculiar genre of literature. And the classification of this genre as mytho-history was suggested to me by the Old Testament scholar Bill Arnold, who teaches at Asbury Seminary. And as Arnold described this category, this genre of literature, the light just came on for me because it seemed to me that this was a very, very plausible genre classification of Genesis 1 to 11. Now, what do we mean by mytho-history? We're not talking about myth in the popular sense of the word, like the myth of the self-made man or the myth of the low-calorie diet. Rather, we're talking about myth in the way that folklorists and classicists use that term to differentiate it from things like folk tales and legends. A myth, in this sense, is a traditional sacred narrative that attempts to ground realities contemporaneous with the author, including a society's institutions and values and natural phenomena, in events of the deep primordial past. And I think you would agree that that description fits Genesis 1 to 11 to a T. And one of the things that I do in the book is go through these narratives in detail. just showing how again and again and again the
pause it for a sec. So,
wow.
Here's this term. I included this. Not that one. Okay. Mytho-history.
Oh, mytho-history. Yes.
The primeval history is the way that the vast majority of scholars will refer to this chunk of literature within Genesis 1 through 11. Lorena Bobbitt. You are probably familiar with you in a lot of the reading that you've done. I suspect you're probably familiar with the fact that scholars, when they approach in particular the books of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, understand that these were composed from older sources and combined from other individual pieces of literature.
Piecemealed.
Piecemealed. That's a good one. It's a very complex process. It's because a lot of Israel had their own collections of stories and texts, but embedded within those were fragments and echoes from much older ancient Near Eastern texts from the surrounding region, from within Canaan, as well as from Mesopotamia, and not as much, but a little bit from the Hittites in the north and the Egyptians in the south. There were all these influences putting pressure on the region, and that's how these stories developed. That's where they came from. So within the Bible, within the Hebrew Bible, these texts which form the primeval history are usually flagged by all scholars as somehow distinct from the rest of the book of Genesis. Craig wants to see all of this literature here as what he calls mytho-history. And then there's a dividing point or a break. And anything after Genesis chapter 12, he said, is history. Now, thank you.
And every scholar says this. Every biblical scholar agrees. So
not on that part. They sure
no,
don't.
He said it. So he said that.
Right.
Sorry,
he
Doctor.
Would know. God damn. I guess I have some catching up to do. Holy cow. Ninjester, if we're getting closer to the truth, doesn't that admit we are currently being lied to? All right.
Hello. Thank you.
That's kind of a question for you, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I see it now. I see all of those changes, basically them saying like, oh crap, like this isn't going as good as we hoped it would. How do we get more money from them? Okay, this is what we do. We're going to require more hours out in field service. We're going to say that this scripture calls us to the field. And, like literally, that's just, it's all just workarounds to get more blood out of a rock.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Yep.
All right. So this term, mytho-history, this is a term that was unfamiliar to me the very first time I heard Craig use it. And you can imagine I'm a biblical scholar. Most of my work is with the Old Testament and with, Hebrew Bible manuscripts. So you can imagine my surprise that this is a term I was unfamiliar with. I hadn't heard. This is not a term that is in use by any scholars that I knew of at the time. So I'm like, he mentions it. He says, he talks about, yes, thank you. Hit the like button, please, everyone. He mentions where this comes from. It's he got it from Bill Arnold, who is a teacher at Asbury. He's one of the co-authors of this. I'll embiggen myself for a minute here. He's one of the authors of this book. This is quite a popular, very conservative text, introductory text for the Old Testament. You can see it's in the EBS series, the Encountering Biblical Studies series, published by Baker Academic, and he caught Craig onto this idea, but it wasn't his either. The idea was kind of coined, and as near as I can tell, and I've looked, the only place where I've actually seen it in print is in an article by a scholar. Sorry, let me pull my notes up here. In an article by a scholar and a Syriologist by the name of Torkild Jakobsen, who wrote an article called well, let me pull this up here too.
I remember him mentioning that name.
Yeah. So back in I think it was the 1990s, he wrote an article called the Eridu Genesis, and this is an old Sumerian text, and it was published in a book titled "I Studied Inscriptions from Before the Flood." I was hoping to find a copy of the essay. I thought I had a copy somewhere. I was unable to find it, but I was pretty happy to find on the our academic biblical thread at Reddit. One of my friends, by the way, Hayden Tank from the Bible Lore podcast is a mod over at our academic biblical, and it's an excellent resource. Lots of really useful information there. So, but I'm just going to put this on the screen here. This is what Jakobsen has to say about this term. And I apologize, I don't know. Oh, right. We got to take that one off first. Okay. I don't know if I can make this any bigger. Can I?
There you go.
There we go. Let's do it that way. Okay. So here is the quote. Let's make it a little bigger. There we go. Okay. Here's what he says. As mentioned, when we explained why we have called the story we are here considering the Eridu Genesis, there are very striking similarities between it and the biblical account of beginning. Particularly, one should add, as it is told in the P source, or the so-called priestly source. Both traditions are tripartite and have in order: first, the creation of men and animals; second, lists of leading figures after creation. In Mesopotamia, city rulers with their reigns; in the Bible, patriarchs with the years they lived; and then the flood. These three parts, moreover, are in both traditions combined simply by arranging them along a line in time, and not according to the most usual device for connecting separate tales or myths, grouping them around a single hero as done, for example, in the Gilgamesh epic or in the Joseph story. In the Eridu Genesis, moreover, the progression is clearly a logical one of cause and effect. The wretched state of natural man touches the motherly heart of Nintur, who has him improve his lot by settling down in cities and building temples, and she gives him a king to lead and organize. As this chain of cause and effect leads from nature to civilization, so a following chain from early cities and kings over into the story of the flood. The well-organized irrigation works carried out by the cities under the leadership of their kings led to a greatly increased food supply, and that in turn makes the man multiply on the earth. The volume of noise these people make keeps Enlil from sleeping and makes him decide to get peace and quiet by sending the flood. Pay attention to the bolded part here. Now, this arrangement along a line of time as cause and effect is striking, For it very much in the way, it is very much in the way a historian arranges his data. And since the data here are mythological, we may assign both traditions to a new and separate genre as mytho-historical accounts. So, what he's saying is that it's the stringing together of mythological episodes into a narratological sequence is what mytho-history is. It is the combination of these mythical ideas into a narrative or an
musical. It's a musical, like you have it in a certain order, and that's your genre.
Yeah,
is what they're arrangement.
So importantly, I'd like to point out, and this is where I think Craig, it's the arrangement. I think this is where Craig is completely missing the point. Importantly, Jacobson has not said that anything in these texts is history. It feels like it, right? That's it. It just feels historical. That's the point.
Because of the arrangement, probably.
Yes, exactly.
That's the
writers, the writers were thinking historiographically. That is, thinking in terms of how one would go ahead and write a history. That's his claim. It sounds to me like when Craig wants to apply this term to Genesis 1 to 11, what he's trying to do is to say that this is, there's lots of mythology here, but it's still echoing things that might be historical. That's what I hear, at least, which is quite different from what Jacobson is saying.
Yeah, I think he's just happy to find a word that fits what he wants it to do, basically.
Even if he's getting the word wrong. The
yeah, because we don't know. I mean, you didn't know.
Good,
I didn't know.
Right?
We don't know.
Exactly.
It sounds perfect. It sounds great.
Exactly. So, yeah. So that is, I have major problems with the way that Craig wants to apply this particular term to the texts. And then the second thing that he's doing here, I think, in terms of the way that, well, I don't even know. I wouldn't even say in terms of the way that Jacobson has defined it. Is it appropriately applied to Genesis 1 to 11? Because at Genesis 11, in the transition from Genesis 11 to 12, there's nothing fundamentally that changes.
No, but it does. He said it does. I don't know if you heard that part.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that, I guess. So I'm gonna pull that off. Let me look at my notes here again just to make sure that I'm on track. So I hope everybody can see that, though. This is, I do have, actually, yeah, I do have a couple of things to read here before we continue. And this is, what is this one? Page 26 to 27. Here we go. Oops. That was good. Okay.
Which book is this?
This one, this is a bit dated, but still a very good book. This is the Oxford History of the Biblical World, edited by Michael Coogan.
Oh, okay. I like him a lot.
Very much so, yes.
The Stories from Canaan, I think.
Yeah, with Mark Smith.
I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I bet you love that book.
How many times I've read that book?
It's so good. It's so good. For people who don't know, Stories from Canaan, actually.
Yeah, I think it's like Stories from Ancient Canaan or something.
Yeah, it's that one.
Yes.
So, because look, it's little.
It's
cheap.
so easy.
Very accessible.
It's like it's like a simple introductory to like the Ugaritic texts, like the ones that you kind of like, oh wow, this is really interesting and sounds almost familiar.
Exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very good. So it at the introduction in the first essay in this book, Coogan's History of the Biblical World, he has a section here where he talks about myth, and I just wanted to read a little bit of this to get people into the mind frame of how scholars talk about mythology and how they talk about these texts, not just restricted to Genesis 1 to 11 either. They extend beyond that, but here's what he has to say. The Bible itself, he says, begins appropriately with an account of the origins of the cosmos and of civilization that is largely mythological. Much of the material in Genesis 1 to 11 is clearly related. It's related to ancient Near Eastern accounts of origins, and mythological language is used throughout the Bible. The ancient Israelites did not live in a cultural vacuum. From prehistoric times on, Palestine was linked by trade with Egypt and Mesopotamia, and one or the other politically dominated it for much of the period from the mid-3rd millennium to the late 1st millennium BCE. Biblical traditions also relate how some of Israel's ancestors and later some of Israel itself spent considerable time in Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon. Thus, while Israelite literature and religion as preserved in the Bible and as uncovered by archaeologists have many distinctive features in their lives and in their writings, the Israelites inevitably shared perspectives with their ancient Near Eastern contemporaries. They were familiar with other cultural expressions and freely adopted and adapted them in articulating their own specific formulations. So all that to say, Israel's part of this much larger cultural zeitgeist, and that's really what's going on in these first 11 chapters of Genesis. What really does set these apart, I prefer to identify this chunk of the text as international literature. It's Israelite literature, but this is the stuff that's is in conversation with these very important epic texts and cosmologies and cosmogonies from the ancient Near East. This is where the text is in conversation with the Epic of Gilgamesh and with the Enuma Elish and with things like Adapa and the South Wind, or Enki and Ninhursag, and some of these great myths that were being told of the origins of origins, right?
Right.
Israelites riffing, all the literature's riffing off that, but that's all kind of contained in Genesis 1 to 11. This isn't the point that breaks on whether or not this is mythological or historical. This is just the point that breaks on this has to do with the whole world. And now, once you get to Genesis 12, the entire rest of the book of Genesis is only concerned with Abraham and his descendants, right? So that's the difference. That's what's going on there. So
so it's not telling us history, first 11 chapters. Wow.
No, not at all. And not even then through the rest of the book of Genesis. There's nothing historical in the book of Genesis, just not a thing.
But he doesn't ask, he says like he did this research and he was studying, but he did not go into any of the symbols or like what else the meaning we could draw from that story. Like he talks about context and the hermeneutics, but you didn't do any of that. You didn't do it.
No,
you didn't do that. No. Okay,
it just none of that stuff is there, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to I'll maybe at this point I'll I'll wait on that one a little bit. I'm just sorry. William Lane Craig flagrantly doesn't care about Eve. only a historical Adam is important enough for the title. That's that good old careless baked in misogyny right there. That's a very good point. Very good point, Kyle. Thanks for pointing that out. So we'll put the video back up for a bit and watch a little bit more, and then I'm going to get into some of the stuff that I've written about this, which I mean, I like to think it's useful. So
we think it's very useful, Dr. Kip.
Okay, thank you.
Family resemblances of myths describe Genesis 1 to 11. However, they're not pure myth. They also have a historical interest, as is evident by these narratives being ordered by genealogies. Genealogies that terminate in people who are indisputably intended to be historical, like Abraham and his children. And these genealogies are like the backbone of these primordial narratives. They turn these prehistoric narratives into a prehistoric chronology or a primeval history. And so that's why the great Assyriologist Thorkild Jakobsen characterized this as a unique genre of literature that he dubbed mytho-history. And Bill Arnold, whom I heard, was simply following Thorkild Jakobsen in this analysis. And I think that it is an extremely plausible analysis of the genre of Genesis 1 to 11. And what I noticed, Sean, in reading various Old Testament commentators like Gordon Wenham or John Collins or John Walton and others, is
pause it there for a second. These commentators, Gordon Wenham, John Collins, and John Walton.
Okay.
Well, I mean, one of these names, I bet my audience is familiar, certainly with one of these names, and they're probably thinking of the great John J. Collins, the author of this is the second edition. There's a third edition now.
No relation.
So this is John J. Collins, who retired as an emeritus professor at Yale, who William Lane Craig is talking about is C. John Collins, who is an evangelical scholar, and it irritates me when they don't make this distinction, because I think they're sometimes I feel like they're doing it on purpose. I don't know if they are, but it sort of feels like they're trying to name drop without actually name dropping. Kind of in a way of going,
sure, why not?
But I assure you, the writings of John J. Collins and C. John Collins are quite different.
Polarizing, I bet.
Yeah. Olivia Williams, Purple Fairy for Canadian for $2.79 Canadian. Thank you very much. Ouch. Abraham being historical, not a chance. But it's even worse. It's even worse because I feel like, again, he hasn't outright said so, but he's camping on this idea that maybe there's some historical stuff in Genesis 1 to 11 too. It's just much less obviously historical than, stories of Abraham. So
once you have the genealogy, that's how you know that it's getting real, because it has the people's names.
That's it, right? This is the and that's actually where I was going to bring up Collins here, because this is sort of the critical point for Craig. This is the way he wants to identify texts as historical versus mythological, right? It's got a genealogy attached to it. It's got to mean it's connected to real people, right?
Sure.
Where's my Collins reference here?
If you say so. Because I mean, you name drop people People name drop all the time to make it sound like they know somebody. Make it special, believable.
Exactly. Right. So Collins provides an excellent little 1-paragraph summary of genealogies that are in the Bible. And this is what he says. They're predominantly attached to the priestly writer in the Pentateuch, in the Torah. And he says the priestly editors of these narratives tried to integrate them into an unfolding history by inserting genealogies. One genealogy in Genesis 5 traces the development of humanity from Adam to Noah. In chapter 10, we find a list of the descendants of Noah. Finally, in Genesis 11, the editor fills in the generations from Shem to Avram, or Abraham. These genealogies are largely a connecting device in the narrative, but they also provide a way for the editors to posit relationships between the various peoples known to them. Both the biblical accounts of creation assume a diffusionist model of the spread of humanity. Since there was only one act of creation of humanity, all human beings must be ultimately related. Inevitably, these genealogies are fictional. All human beings must be ultimately, they are fictional, but they serve to bring a sense of order to the diversity of human society, and they also helped to keep the biblical focus on the story of Israel in perspective. Even the Gentiles, in all their ethnic variations, were made in the image of God. So, you catch what he's saying there, Ryan?
Not really, other than bringing in the genealogy ties it all together, like sections of history together. If I'm picking up what he's putting down,
basically. Yes. So that's the one piece. Is it's a way of creating the sense of this unbroken chain of events that in the editors are putting together individual stories, and in order to connect them, they're using the genealogies in that sense. But the other thing that is kind of governing this way of writing is that this all stems from the conviction in the first place that all human beings were created by God. Therefore, everyone is related. So the ancient authors are like, well, what's our relationship to this other people group that we know of? And the thing that we see, I won't pull this one up. There's a section in my book where I do talk about this in chapter 9, generations. I have a whole thing about genealogies and how they function. And when you compare and contrast the varieties of tribal genealogies in the Hebrew Bible, you can see, and not just those, but the international genealogies too, you can see the ways in which these are reflective of the ways in which they imagine their relationship to one another as Israelites, but then also to the people who surrounded them. So the nation of Edom was very close. It was right there on the southern border. They shared a lot of religious, cultural traditions, distinctions with the Edomites in particular. Edom is very closely related to Israel within their genealogical scheme.
Is that where the Balaam text, does the Balaam talk about Edom, or is that?
So Balaam, but
the Deir Allah inscription, I mean.
Oh, the Deir Allah inscription is, yes, that's correct. The Deir Allah inscription was in the territory of Edom. Interestingly, the biblical narrative features Balaam. It doesn't say where he come. Well, it does say where he comes from, but it's like it's far away, but relatively far away. But he is in the service of the king of Moab. So,
right.
which is also, I mean, again, closely related, but not as closely related as Edom. So it's a way, I say in my text, that genealogies function as a way to map relationships, perceived relationships between these people and their neighbors and other nations, right?
We're friends, we're fam.
So exactly.
Don't kill me.
So but importantly, these are fiction. They're fiction. They're not tied to any sense of reality. There's no family history at work here behind these texts. So
my one question for William Lame Craig would be, is okay, again, with how much work he put into this in reality at all, but he would only truly need to go from Adam and Eve to Noah. Like, beyond that, what's the point? Like, Noah, I mean, that's the reset. So why are you going beyond that? Like, if you can just prove Noah, then you're golden, buddy.
That's true, right? Like, that's a good point. If wow, yeah. Huh, that's interesting. No, that's a good point.
He's doing so much work. You gotta get lazy sometimes with it. Just kidding.
I'll say one other thing about, and that's related to what you have brought up. So within the ancient Near East, within these cultures more broadly, there is there's a consistent perspective in terms of their imagination of world history, that they all are committed to this idea that there was a different kind of world before the flood than what happened after the flood. The flood is kind of like the dividing line between what scholars will identify as the primeval history, and then things that are beyond that, like for other cultures. It's a little bit different in the Bible because the Tower of Babel story is also included in the primeval history that follows after it, right? So, but the way in which this period of time is presented, the primeval history or the antediluvian period, the pre-flood period, and this is consistent among the ancient Near Eastern texts that deal with this, is it's presented as something that happened in the irretrievable past, like the very, very distant past that, is barely within memory. It was so long ago. But then everything in this world was just more mysterious, more strange, more magical, I guess. The people lived much longer, and that's something I think people will recognize, right? Within the Bible, people lived very long in those first 11 or 12 chapters of Genesis, and then a lot shorter after that, right? This is consistent within this pattern of evaluating the time break, but importantly, it's not the same way that Craig wants to see this distinction between the pre-flood and the post-flood material events. So it's good to see you, Dr. Cheryl. I haven't seen you around in a little while. Sean McDowell, William Lane Craig. Yeah, that's that is what's happening here today. So
lucky you stopped in, right? Aren't you happy now you're here?
Right? Yes. So happy. So maybe hit play for a bit, and then I'll bring some stuff up from the book.
Really, the view that they hold to, but they don't dare use the terminology of myth because it's so apt to be misunderstood. So they find euphemisms to substitute. Wenham likes to talk about proto-history.
Yeah, he's talking about these scholars.
Right. But I mean,
and how they're trying to avoid the term myth when talking about this old literature here.
history. I think Collins talks about worldview history. All of this is exactly what Jacobson meant by mytho-history, but they tried to conceal the real nature of this by these euphemisms. And I'm persuaded that we owe it to our Christian laity and congregations to be straight up with them and to define our terms carefully and accurately, and then make straightforward assertions about what we're saying rather than try to mask it beneath acceptable euphemisms.
A few minutes
But is that not what he does?
ago, you said all New Testament scholars agreed that history starts at Genesis 12, moving
Did
forward.
I say New Testament or Old Testament?
You said new, but I assume you meant old, just for clarification.
Yeah, I didn't mean new.
Okay, got it. Just want to make sure for listeners. Okay, so what you're saying is history as we look at it normally, for lack of a better term, Genesis 12 clearly has that form of history. There's a shift in the narrative after 11. So 1 through 11 is proto-history.
Clearly, it's clearly. If you don't see it,
Clearly.
Your vision is blurred if you don't see it.
There is a
mytho-history
shift in the narrative
that contains some history, but also some other stories that weren't meant to be taken historical. Is that fair as far as it goes?
Yeah, weren't meant to be taken literalistically. When you look at myth, what you discover is that myth is often written in figurative language, often fantastic language, and therefore wasn't taken literalistically, even by those who accepted the myth as authoritative for their culture. I think it should prompt us not to be over literalistic in the way we read these narratives. And once you begin to look at them in terms of mytho-history, it's difficult to look at them in any other way. I mean, when you read a story about two people in an arboretum with these magical trees whose fruit, if you eat it, will grant you immortality or knowledge of good and evil, and then there's this talking snake who comes along and tempts them into sin. And then you have this anthropomorphic God walking in the cool of the garden, calling out audibly to Adam in his hideout. You think, well, of course this is figurative and metaphorical language.
Of course it's figurative. Clearly.
There is an awful lot there. And I'll start again. Sean repeated it back to him for clarification, and Craig agreed that Genesis 12 forward is history. Genesis 1 to 11 is mytho-history, and he even made he asked for the clarification that doesn't mean that it's not historical. Genesis 1 to 11, it just means that it's less overtly historical. But they both agree there's this fundamental shift that happens between Genesis 11 and 12, and then everything after that is history. So that's the first thing.
It's almost like magic.
Yeah. And I assume everybody in my audience knows how much nonsense that is. There is just nothing historical about anything after Genesis 12 either. It's just, sorry, it gets frustrating.
There's just so much. It's overwhelming because there's so much that you could point. Who wrote it? Who was there with Adam and Eve? Who witnessed it? Did Adam write it and then pass it down? Like, how do we know that this is an actual? Exactly.
There's none of that there.
Nothing.
But now the second thing that he points to is that part of what makes Genesis 1 to 11 distinct is that it's filled with these fantastical elements. A snake that talks, a couple that lives in an arboretum, a God walking around in the garden, these sorts of things. Dr. Craig, have you read the Bible?
Right. I'm thinking in my head, like, there's so many instances in the Bible where I would say that that's absolutely fantastical.
Yes, beyond Genesis 1 to 11, right?
Right. I mean, wrestling with God, is that not something strange?
That's something that Jacob does, right? Balaam, you mentioned it earlier. Balaam talking donkey. It's right in there, talking ass. They made a big deal about God walking around in the garden. In Genesis, I think it's 17 is one of the stories of the expulsion of Hagar by Sarai. She meets Yahweh at a well because he comes up and has a conversation with her.
Right.
In Genesis chapter 18, God, Yahweh, and two other divine beings come and have a meal with Abraham. Like these are, there is, and that's the big point here, right? That I really want to make is, if you're going to set a division between Genesis 11 and 12, it can't be that.
Yeah, that's not it.
No. Olivia Williams, Purple Fairy, thank you for another $2.79 Canadian. Hey, Craig, talking donkey in numbers.
And isn't there another one? I thought there was like two donkeys that talk or something happened. Am I wrong?
I think there's just the one. I have to go back and look. But I'll give you another one though. And this is, I'm teaching, I'm going to be introducing my new course, teaching Hebrew through the Book of Jonah. If you read through the Book of Jonah, there's a lot of wild shit happening in this book. Jonah is swallowed by a gigantic fish.
As it happens sometimes when you
and then spit out onto the beach.
And that happens as well.
Right. There's one part of the story where, this is the story of Jonah going and preaching to those wicked Assyrians in the capital city of Nineveh. And the whole city repents. But it says that everybody came out in sackcloth and ashes to repent. Even the cows and the goats.
They were sad?
repenting.
They were
in sackcloth
and
ashes.
Oh, so they even did like the ashes on them and
sure, yeah, they were doing the whole thing. Does this sound like a historical story to you?
Well, maybe they're like how we dress our pets up today in the little costumes.
Is that what they were doing?
Maybe maybe that's what they were doing.
Just gonna cover
instead of like little skirts and fluffy things, it was just sackcloth and ash.
Just gonna cover poor Pickle in ashes there.
Poor animals, they didn't get the fun dress up. They got the dress up to go die.
God damn, eh? So like Simone points out, Jonah is pretty obvious satire. There are a pile of absurdities throughout all sorts of the biblical texts which show on their face that they contain fantastical elements. This is not the breaking point between myth and history.
It's just hilarious how he just says that with a straight face,
just
about
the confidence.
Fantastical. Yeah, like I guess what he decides is fantastical is what's fantastical. Resurrection, that's not fantastical. Not at all. Historical.
All right. Maybe I will at this point read a little bit of some of what I've written about this. So this is from my book, God's Propaganda. This is sorry, I have to get the where. I believe this is page. Actually, I have to, because I'm reading from the ebook, and the page numbers are totally different there, right? So this would be from pages 117, I think. If you have your copies, you can start there. Is that correct? No, it's not. Let's see. 15, 16. Yeah, okay. So it is What's the other one? 176, I think, is this one. Yes. So I'm reading from page 176 here. That's what's on your screen. And at the beginning of this is chapter 7. At the beginning of chapter 7. Oh, look, Ryan's got her copy. At the beginning of chapter 7. I talk about how the emergence of science really created some of these crises of faith within evangelical Christianity, and they addressed it in ways that really seem to have wanted to marry science and faith. And here, I'll just read. There was published a series of booklets in the 1920s called The Fundamentals, and they were contributed to by a bunch of biblical scholars and pastors. And one of these essays was Science and the Christian Faith, written by Professor James Orr. And here's what he said: grievous mistakes have often been made, and unhappy. Oh, it's not on the screen, is it? Sorry. Oh, there we go. Ooh, okay. Grievous mistakes have often been made, and unhappy misunderstandings have arisen on one side and the other in the course of the progress of science. That new theories and discoveries, as in astronomy and geology, have been looked on with distrust by those who thought that the truth of the Bible was being affected by them. On the contrary, as a minority generally perceived from the first, the supposed disharmony with the truths of the Bible was an unreal one, early giving way to better understandings on both sides, and finally opening up new vistas in the contemplation of the Creator's power, wisdom, and majesty. It is never to be forgotten also that the error was seldom all on one side, that science, too, has in numberless cases put forth its hasty and unwarrantable theories, and has often had to retract even its truer speculations within limits which brought them into more perfect harmony and revealed truth. If theology has resisted novelties of science, it has often had good reason for doing so. And it's written, it's an older form of English, so some of that's probably not all that easy to understand. But what he's saying is basically that you can set both science and the Bible on the same level, because theology corrects science just as much as science corrects theology. Sure, it does.
Isn't that nice? What a symbiotic relationship.
Right? Yes, it certainly is. So here we are. Here is where we see the effect of scientific discovery on modern myth-making, as the early evangelicals sought to have their cake and to eat it too. On the one hand, the truth of Scripture was never open to dispute, while the discoveries of science, on the other, could not be denied. The result for many was this weird fusion by which the ancient myths of Scripture were married to science in the guise of historical narrative. Because the first chapter of Genesis and the rest of the Pentateuch so closely resembled the genre of history writing, it was easier to also assume that these were straightforward reports of the past events revealed to Moses by God and written down in the late Bronze Age. Historical narrative is a term that is wielded like a bludgeon by apologists to assert the historicity of the events described in Genesis. The argument tends to work its way out as this blogger would put it. The thing that made biblical literature so unique in the ancient world was that it was obsessed with history. The Jews were a people obsessed with history, more obsessed with history than any other nation that has ever existed. If I can put it this way, this blogger says, they were well aware of the various ancient Near Eastern mythologies of their world, and even though we occasionally find the use of ancient Near Eastern mythological language and imagery within the Old Testament, we would be utter fools to think that everything in Genesis to 2 Kings was just like ancient Near Eastern mythology. Anyone who knows how to read and has even the slightest modicum of literary competency will see the vast difference between what we find in the Old Testament and what we find in other ancient Near Eastern mythology. The narratological style of Genesis and the rest of the Torah is indeed, in retrospect, I said vastly different. I think I would change that to just say different. It's different than most of the mythological literature of the ancient Near East. Much of it we've already glanced at in texts like the Baal cycle, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and Atrahasis. Most of these texts were more closely resemble the literary style of high poetry in like the Song of Moses. And this fascinating difference clearly sets the Torah narratives apart as seemingly something else. But what? Renowned Berkeley professor of Hebrew and comparative literature, Robert Alter, has rather persuasively argued that this deliberate style was less about communicating history, instead tending toward, as he calls it, the rebellion of biblical literature against the pagan worldview. Whoops, there's a typo. You guys don't see that. Pay no attention to the typo.
Good catch.
Oh, well, I mean, not after it's published.
Darn it.
Bad catch. Damn it. Alter says, but by the way, everyone, there's typos in every book. Alter says that these grand narratives were drawn from Hebrew epics and then woven together in the form of a national story. But unlike the lofty poetic scaffolding that was characteristic of most ancient Near Eastern mythology, the decision to cast these stories in the form of prosaic narratives was made to distance them from their sources. Citing Shemayahu Talmon, Alter posits that what by all appearance we have in the Bible is a deliberate avoidance of epic, and the prose form of Hebrew narrative is the chief evidence for this avoidance. As Talmon himself has put it, the ancient Hebrew writers purposefully nurtured and developed prose narration to take the place of the epic genre, which by its content was ultimately bound up with the world of paganism, and appears to have had a special standing in the polytheistic cults. The recitation of the epics was tantamount to the enactment of cosmic events in the manner of sympathetic magic. The process of total rejection of the polytheistic religions and the ritual expressions in the cult, epic songs, and also epic genre were purged from the repertoire of Hebrew authors. Setting aside Talmon's thoughts of the resistance to polytheism, I think he's wrong about that. I think he's right about a lot of other things here, though. At least the Bible has no typos.
Shade. The shade, Dr.
Ouch. Ouch. That is also wrong. I think he and Alter are right to point out more modestly that this is a reactionary artistic choice made in protest against foreign ideologies. But if they are right, then a straightforward reading of the first story of creation in Genesis 1 gets us only partway to clearly seeing the mythology embedded within the text. This is in no small part the source of the problem with attempting to extract science from the myth, since at a glance, The cosmic geography in Genesis 1 may map more or less neatly onto our own sense of the world. However, not precisely. And this is because the narrative structure of Genesis is concealing the wonder of an ancient Israelite worldview. Teasing that out will require us to probe beneath this veneer to get a glimpse of the shape and structure of the world for the writers of the Hebrew Bible. So, the point I'm getting at there, and in the challenge I'm making to what Craig is saying here, even though he's not saying exactly the same thing as the blogger I quoted was, what he is suggesting is what I'm getting at here is that you can't force this hard divide in terms of what's historical versus what's mythological on the basis of the literary style. That's not the way you can do that. Craig has talked about fantastical elements in the text, right? This particular blogger that I quoted talks about this Hebrew prose, this narrative, this narrative style, right? As a way, because this really is, and you've read, Ryan, a lot of the epic poetry from Canaan, right? Like there's a style, maybe you can even see it, right? There's a stylistic difference in the way those texts are written.
Yep.
Like it's you can see it right away when you read that compared to something like in the Hebrew literature. So much of the Hebrew literature in the Bible is in the form of prose, of narration, of stories. Stories that are told naturally in the way that we tell stories to each other. So what this blogger is getting at is that's the key. That's the key to discovering history in the Bible. Is if it's written like this, then it must be it. It must be true. I think that's silly.
That's the special sauce, I guess. That's the formula. It just sounds so silly. If that works for you, I guess.
It really does. But now what Robert Alter and Shemaryahu Talmud have pointed out is that this choice to construct these narratives as narratives is deliberate, but for a different reason. They see it as polemical. You've got all these texts from Canaan, the Baal cycle, El's drinking party, the story of Akkad. Do you have a favorite, by the way?
I mean, I really do love the Baal cycle. I think that is my favorite. But they're all really cool, to be fair.
They're all very cool.
They are. I think people should read them.
They should read them. But it fundamentally different, right? This narratological style in the Bible is fundamentally different than the epic poetry that you read in the Baal cycle. It's just structured completely differently. According to Talmud and Alter, that the choice to do that was to separate these people
intentional
from the literature of their neighbors. We're special.
A distinction. I think that if there is a way to do it, I think that's a pretty cool way to do it. Like that's a different level,
Yeah, it's a way you can do it. It's not the only way, and I like that idea. I think there's probably something to that. It's not the only way, and I'll go somewhere else here in the book at this point. I'm gonna bring up my is it here? Nope, not there. It might take me a second here to find, if you want to grab some of the stuff from the
let me read
chat.
this comment. Enduring motifs. I like your name there. But can we really call those stories that you mentioned Canaanite when they're found in Garrett, which is more so Syria? I think that's probably Ugarit, which is more so Syria. And on top of that, how the people of Ugarit did see themselves as Canaanite. Oh, I think, okay, I see what you're saying. I'm so sorry. But can we really call those stories that you mentioned Canaanite when they're found in Ugarit, which is more so Syria? And on top of that, how the people of Ugarit did see themselves as Canaanites. Siri, you know, you do people dirty all the time. I called my friend an a-hole the other day, and that is not what I said. But for whatever reason, Siri said, you're an a-hole. Like literally said, you're an a-hole. Anyway, okay, so can we really call those stories Canaanite when they're found in? Yeah, because I believe that Canaan. I mean, Ugarit had a lot of. Your iPhone first. Yeah. Okay. She's always listening. I think Ugarit had a lot of influence because it was a metropolis, wasn't it? There was a lot of influence there. Port city. Hip happening place, so probably a lot, and also on Ugarit, because there were like 8 languages I think found there, so it wasn't just Ugaritic. So Ugarit is influencing people, but also that influence is coming their way.
Yes, and the ways, so the way in which I believe Mary Beard has written on this, I think it was her. I could be wrong, but the way that scholars that I've read are talking about Ugarit is that this is an Amorite city, part of like a larger Amoritic Koine culture that certainly extends into the south, into southern Canaan. Like it's yes, you're correct. It's Syrian. Ugarit is clearly in what we would consider, you know, modern and certainly ancient Syria, but it's still kind of on the fringes of northern Canaan as well. So there was a strong influence from the Amoritic culture of this period all the way into the south, into Canaan. So I think the reason why,
aren't they, if they're going to Egypt, they're probably coming straight down through and
absolutely
turn left.
And that's one of the features of this Amorita culture, is that it is very much a culture grounded on this widespread trade influence through trade and through the production and dissemination of all sorts of different kinds of goods, including, and I think that, you know, including the literary traditions and stories and ideas. It's all connected. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, true. So if I could just pop into, I know we shouldn't say that, but if I could just pop back into time, like 3,000 years ago, I would just love to see what was happening there.
I know, right?
Just a little
but just to visit.
Yeah, no, I don't want to stay there. I need running water, so
right.
I need electricity.
As I continue to remind people that the ancient world was terrible. It was just awful. So
it's fun to reminisce, but people who like period themselves like back into, like, you're crazy. You want to go back when women didn't have rights? Please. Hell no.
No.
It's bad enough now.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit here and explore this question from a slightly different perspective. We talked about how this narratological style was a product of perhaps a polemic. This was deliberate in order to good to see you, Maya. In order to separate themselves from their neighbors. This is somewhat problematic in view of the fact that this isn't just an exclusively Israelite thing. Something that we see in one of the important inscriptions from the region is the so-called Mesha Stele, or the Moabite stone, which is written in this prosaic form.
Okay.
And then there's others. We have lots of You know, sorry, I shouldn't say that. What I should say is that it's reflective of what we see on something like the Mishnah Stele, and then what we see in the biblical narratives is stylistically reflective of then what we see in the documentary texts from this period, the ostraca, the letters and the contracts and the day-to-day examples of writing. So
Okay.
and that's fundamentally different from what you see in, you know, this broader ancient Near East, where your literature takes this high form of poetry, but then your day-to-day stuff, like letters from the king, you know, you write
Not
that.
writing poetry to the king.
No, you're not.
You're not. You're probably keeping it pretty simple, I'm guessing.
Exactly. So when it comes to Israel, what's going on? Why is what is this distinction about? So Seth Sanders, who is I believe now at the University of Dalhousie. Is it the University of Dalhousie, or is it is in Dalhousie, Nova Scotia. But he's in Canada now. And he wrote an excellent book a few years ago called The Invention of Hebrew. I draw from it a little bit when I'm in chapter 11. And for those who want to read along here, this is, let me get the page here. Right. I believe this is page 290. Let me just double check.
On your thing, it does say 290.
Does it actually? Wow.
Yes, it's 290 through 294.
Oh, on the notes. Yes.
You on the notes.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So this is starting in page 290. That's chapter 11, where I draw a fair bit from Seth Sanders. And what I'm talking about here is just the dissemination of writing and reading, literacy. How does that affect the way that we understand just the existence and the function of these Hebrew texts, right? So I've just gone through the literacy rates. I don't think they're exceptionally important to the arguments that I'm making moving forward here, but they're in there in the book just before this. The literacy rates are quite low across the board. Not a lot of people could read or write. So, but moving forward from that, the temptation is to extrapolate backwards from later, more developed studies of literacy into earlier periods, extrapolate backwards from these more exhaustive studies of a later period in antiquity to suggest that there was even fewer readers and writers in the more formative stages of Israelite religions, that is, in the early to mid Iron Age. Indeed, David Carr promotes caution from his reading of the later preserved text of the Hebrew Bible against a paucity of evidence for widespread epigraphic activity at the time of the two kingdoms, that's the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah, between the 9th to the 6th centuries BCE, and in conversation with our knowledge of education drawn from contemporary cultures. And here's a quote. We have, this is from David Carr, his excellent book, Writing on the Tablet of the Heart. We have little epigraphic evidence from ancient Israel to help us in study of more advanced forms of education. We are faced with a similar situation to that of ancient Greece, having to rely on inferences about education based on transmitted literary texts, along with references to education in them. Nevertheless, there is a big difference between the evidence situation in Israel and that in ancient Greece, partly because of an apparent Israelite/Jewish avoidance of images after the 7th century. We lack the sort of iconographic data that are helpful in reconstructing early Greek education. So the point he's making here is that when you're looking at early forms of Greek education, even though we don't have a lot of texts from which to draw, there's lots and lots of statues and engravings and these sorts of things, which show the process of Greek education that scholars use. All of that is missing from ancient Israel.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, that does kind of suck. They shot themselves in the foot there.
it does. It does. It was very unhelpful to us, ancient
Yeah, it's kind of
Israelites.
sad because like when I first saw was it the Hezekiah seal? I think
Yeah,
it is with the imagery of the sun disk or something like
that's
that
right.
on
Yes.
it. Yeah, it's like, oh man, if they just had kept that, we'd have like so much more insight on what they believe. But alas.
It really would have been, if only the ancient people would listen to us after the fact in terms of
2020,
things.
hello.
Right? Please. Okay. However, a strong case is made by Seth Sanders that the sparse surviving epigraphic remains may in fact show that literacy was not so cloistered at this time. And what I mean by that is that it was not just restricted to this tight this tight group of elites within the royal house and the administration and the priesthood. One of the remarkable things observed in the time of the two kingdoms is that the written Hebrew language developed broadly and consistently within the region of the highlands. Most of the evidence for this writing is not in the form of royal communiques and monumental stelae, but rather found on pottery and metalworks. This consistency and distribution is seen in places one would not expect, in the hinterlands of the desert in Kuntulat Ashrud, and in the small settlement on the east side of the Jordan River in Deir Allah. For Sanders, the evidence of the 8th century BCE rather points to a class of writers outside of royal courts in Samaria and Jerusalem. Here he says, such well-known forms of craftsmanship are hardly exclusive of state power. Taxation and armies were not possible without storage jars and swords. These skills were taught at scattered sites and communicated over time and distance through trade networks and family traditions. Like pottery and metallurgy, this sort of scribalism could easily be brought into the service of the state, but did not require the same massing of people and resources as a chancery. Craft scribalism could be turned toward the state's purposes, but was not bonded to it. So the point that he's making is that within Israel, scribalism developed among like the artisan class. The people who were making the pots and the swords were also the ones who were doing a lot of writing, which is actually a little bit unusual compared to other places. But what does that mean, right? And then how do we understand that within the perspective of something like the Misha Stele, this monumental inscription that's written in this prosaic form? And this is what I get to here. There is another element within the epigraphic remains of the two kingdoms that is also shared by their neighbors in Moab to the east and Aram to the north. There's another inscription to the north at Dan that was written by an Aramaic king. It's written in Aramaic, not Hebrew, but Aramaic is close to Hebrew, and it follows this same sort of narratological structure. This is the famous Tel Dan inscription. The mention, are you familiar with this one, Ryan?
Slain the house of David or
David,
something like that.
exactly, that one. It's really, really important. So, unlike the memorial Akkadian scribal products of the dominant Assyrian Empire, monumental inscriptions that survive in Hebrew reveal something new, a democratization of their readers, and in a novel form, historical narrative. A striking feature of the Hebrew inscriptions is their imagination of an audience. In his description of the 9th century BCE Misha Stele that was introduced in chapter 3 of the book, Sanders notes that there is an I, but no you. Different from their Assyrian and Mesopotamian counterparts, the Hebrew inscriptions are not addressed to the gods. That was the whole point of these memorial inscriptions for the ancient Near Eastern rulers. These were communications to their gods. They were addressed to them. They were written to them. Their intended audience was the divine. And that's the difference with something like the Moabite stone. Different from their Assyrian and Mesopotamian counterparts, the Hebrew inscriptions are not addressed to the gods, but rather to the people. Apart from something like the magnificent Behistun inscription of Darius I, the expectation here is that these texts could be read. If you're writing to the gods, it doesn't matter that anybody else can actually read what you're writing, Ryan. But if you're writing to people, the expectation is the people can read it.
Yeah. I mean, if they're putting out there in the public, setting it up, they're assuming somebody's going to want to know what the heck is there, this monument to to somebody's god.
And that brings us to this. I don't know if you're familiar with this one. There's an exquisite inscription in the city of Jerusalem it's called what's been identified as the Siloam Tunnel, and it's been dated to the early 8th century BCE. Sorry, 7th century BCE. Late 7th century BCE. Sorry. So this is the Siloam Tunnel inscription. This is possibly the same tunnel commissioned by the King Hezekiah to ensure that access to water was maintained in preparation for an Assyrian siege on the city of Jerusalem in 701. The inscription itself reads like this: the tunnel. And this is the account of the tunnel. When the stonecutters approached, one of them wielded a pick toward his friend, and while 3 cubits remained to the breach, a voice was heard calling out to his friend, because there was a fault in the rock on the right and on the left. And at that moment of the breach, the stonecutters struck each other, pick to pick, and the waters flowed from the source to the pool for 200 and 1,000 cubits, and the height of the rock above the stonecutters was 100 cubits. This inscription is extraordinary on a couple of fronts. In contrast to the typical Mesopotamian monumental texts, it's not written by a king, and it is not featured in a public display. In fact, the tunnel inscription was carved deep into the shaft of the Siloam Tunnel itself, presumably marking the place where the breach occurred. This is an object of private commemoration. According to Sanders, the Siloam Tunnel inscription dramatizes the experiences of the workmen, the thrill of their success in an immensely difficult work of engineering, a kind of inverted royal inscription. It is carved within the depths of the tunnel. Rather than dominating the landscape, it is inscribed in a place that would be difficult for anyone except the people who worked in the tunnel to see, as a hidden memorial to anonymous collective experience rather than royal fame. It is also remarkable. Minecraft-based fiction. Very nice.
That is incredible, though. Like, it is pretty remarkable that lasted, and it kind of just sounds like almost like an everyday person, or somebody who worked there was just like, oh man, that happened the other day. We should put that in there. Oh yeah, let's do that. Yeah, it's really cool.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
So there are implications. Okay. So there are implications for this, right? Like when we look at something like this, we have to think through who are these people and what are they doing? This particular inscription similarly attests to the broader distribution of reading and writing outside of the royal courts and within reach of craftsmen and artisans. Importantly, not the entire population, but certainly a larger segment of the population than scholars have tended to assume. So Sanders remarks on the significance of one more, much more public inscription in Deir Allah in the Transjordan, almost directly east of Samaria, about 20 kilometers. The 8th century BCE text is painted on the plaster wall of a multi-room structure and it survives as the only extant message from a biblical prophet not included in the Bible, which is fascinating. Balaam, son of Beor, is the prophet of Yahweh in Numbers 22 to 24, who is contracted by the Moabite king Balak to hurl curses on the invading Israelites encroaching on his southern border. The story is set in the time of Moses during an imagined Exodus. However, the actual Balaam lived much later, in the 8th century BCE, within the territory of the northern kingdom, and he was not beholden in his devotion to the God Yahweh. There's a long quotation here. I'm not going to bother reading it. People can check it out on their own. The inscription itself is really, really interesting. It also bears some parallels to the oracles that are delivered by Balaam in the Book of Numbers, which is very interesting. But just to conclude here, this inscription goes on and on for many more now fragmented lines, and it does not read in the flowing prosaic Hebrew narrative style of the Misha Stele or the Siloam Tunnel inscription. It is nevertheless a Hebrew text. Well, probably Hebrew text. There is some question about some of the elements in the Deir Allah inscription. It's a Hebrew text prominently displayed for a public reading. Unlike in the biblical story of Balaam, this text relays the visions of the great seer that he had of the divine council, the court of El, and his companion deities, but with no mention of Yahweh. However, the content of the inscription is also reminiscent of the 4 oracles attributed to Balaam in Numbers 23 to 24, of divine visitations and visions of signs and admonitions and destruction and death, all in a language not very different from biblical Hebrew. For Sanders, the significance of the inscription is both in its public display, but also in the contrast it presents to the biblical story. He says, both in the Iron Age inscription and the biblical account reflect a genre that had not previously existed, a narrative about a prophet who conveys divine messages and power regardless of a king's desires. In the biblical account, his autonomous religious power as such that he requires the threat of divine force to be brought into line. In contrast to the Near Eastern royal monuments, the writing of Deir Allah marks not the conquest of space by armies or architects, but the circulation of a message to the people on the interior of an ordinary building. And they command, as part of the divine judgment, that they be read aloud. So Sanders makes a compelling argument for the emergence of Hebrew writing outside of the courts in the northern and southern kingdoms. And this picture of development is tantalizing for how it maps onto the existing sociological situation, in which settlement patterns show a movement away from the cities and into the Judean highlands. While still uncommon, writing becomes more and more accessible for more and more people who are plying their trades and circulating their wares up and down the hill country. The presence of Yahweh is known from Kintilat Ajrud in the far south, but the world of this people is one that is richly informed by many Canaanite gods, like those in Balaam's visions. Hebrew literature emerged from an artisan's class and out of resistance to the state imperial ideals of the Egyptians, the Anatolians, and the Assyrians. These would eventually come to be co-opted by tribal kings in their efforts to enact power in the highlands. So that was a lot. There's a lot there, but there's a few things that I want to key in on. And one of these, the really important one, is when we're talking about this invention or this usage of historical narrative. Why is this important? Oh, hey, Lil, thanks for that. Look, I have replenished the treat jar. Oh, look, it doesn't take much to get them up.
They're smart. They know. Oh,
look, very smart. Look, he's such a good boy.
Oh,
good boy.
He's a cool little baby.
Yeah, you are very good, aren't you? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You can go back to sleep now.
I'll take more treats.
What the usage, the wide usage of historical narrative, and why does it affect the texts in a way for the Israelites that isn't seen in these other regions? So Sanders makes the case that as part of developing within the artisan class, reading and writing developed along the same lines as the common usage of language. It's how we speak. It's the vernacular. So these more common people, as they are more broadly utilizing language in text and in writing, they are doing so not in the same way that the Assyrians and the Babylonians and the Egyptians are, where this is high literature. It's for the gods. It's super sophisticated. You turn it into this super arcane poetic verse. No, they're ordinary people who are going to write in the way that they speak. It's narrative. It's narrative. That's why. Is this part of a resistance to other realms, other kings, other ideas? I think, yeah, very likely. That's part of it. But I think it also is reflective of where this stuff came from. Reflective of the fact that, you know what, it's very much like the way that scholars talk about the New Testament literature as well. Koine Greek is different from High Greek because it's the common language. It's the language of the people. That's what historical narrative is in the Hebrew Bible. It is mythology reconstructed in the language of the people. So that was an awful lot. But if we're going to return to William Lane Craig and to Sean McDowell, and we've been going for 2.5 hours, so we don't have to do any more of the video. But if we're going to return to them, this completely destroys any sense that you can just sit down with a text and look at them stylistically and figure out what's history and not history. You can't do that.
The style, yeah.
The style is serving a totally different purpose, and I think that's exciting too. I'm a bit of a Bible nerd. I don't know if you've heard, Ryan, but I fucking love the Bible.
I think maybe somebody might have told me that, like a little birdie or something, but I wasn't sure.
You might have seen. I have a shirt. I'm not wearing it today. I have a shirt and everything.
So, advertise.
You guys, you can get the shirt. People love the shirt.
So, little shill.
That's right. So we showed the course. We got to show the shirts and the book too. Buy the book, friends. So there it is. So that's really the point of today, is understanding first of all what myth is, what mythology is in terms of the literature that we read, and then secondly, how do we use this particular term when it comes to the actual Hebrew, like the texts themselves that we have in our Bibles, because it's not just as simple as looking at the high poetry, and there's plenty of that in the Bible, and it's pretty old. Texts like the Song of the Sea or the Song of Moses or the Song of Devorah, these are all high poetry, very similar to their counterparts in the ancient Near Eastern epics, but you can't use just that. You can't use the fantastical elements of the text if that on its own doesn't get you to the dividing line between what's history and what's not. I mean, it's one of the things, but it's not the only thing. So, yeah, that's all that I have for today. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
That was very well said. I think that deserves a clap. I mean, honestly, if you can sit through William Lane Craig and like not fall asleep, then you're doing a world of good, quite frankly. You must be educating people.
That's good. There's still 100 people watching. So you know, that is that's a good sign.
It's a very good sign.
I was never here is suggesting that they're going to buy my Braille books, and I don't know why you would do that.
You want to spend $500?
Yeah, you spent a lot of money, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you just want to make me feel bad, you'll do that, because I never see any of that money, by the way. The royalties I get from Bill. Well, I don't get royalties from Brill, but that's a whole other. There's a whole thing behind it. Well, here's the thing, Ryan. Brill pays out royalties after you've hit a certain threshold. So you actually have to sell a certain number of books before they even start paying you royalties. I have cleared that threshold. Okay. However, at that point, they open an account for you. You have like a royalties account, and you can withdraw your royalties. So when I hit that threshold, I went to go log into my royalties account, and I couldn't. It wouldn't let me in. And you know, this is a tech issue. I was trying to reset my password. It wasn't working. Everything I was trying to do just didn't work. So I contacted IT over at Brill, and they basically said, they said, you tried this? I was like, yes. They said, you tried this? I was like, yep, tried that. You've done all these other things? Yep, I've done all the things. Huh. That sucks.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad they took it seriously. I love the fact that they were like, customer service. Let me get on that, sir.
Yeah.
You have money owed to you in this capitalist system. No, they were like, oh, that's a shame for you.
As far as I can tell, because nobody at Braille wants to correct the technical issue, my royalties are just locked away in the Braille vaults for forever.
We're going down not to like Brill. Wherever Brill is, we're meeting there.
It's in the Netherlands. It's in Leiden.
Oh, okay.
It's far.
Well,
so
it was a nice thought. It was a gesture.
It was a very, very nice thought, Ryan. Thank you.
We can tweet Brill and tell them they need to fix their ish.
There you go. Maybe that'll work. But honestly, you know what? It's honestly not that big a deal either. It's like, it's literally, there's hardly anything there. It's like a couple €100, but you know, it's the principle of the thing.
It is the principle. It really is the principle.
So, all right. So yeah, that's it. That's all we got. Do you have some thoughts or anything as we finish up here?
Not
today?
Really. Other than I just found it super interesting the way that they're able to talk to each other like they're not, like you said, he seems like he really believes himself, this William Lane Craig, but they're talking to each other like, oh, this makes sense. Like, this is accurate. Like, okay, we're going to ask these questions. And then when we get there, we don't even ask those questions. We stick to the one thing. And that's that, you know, Adam has to be legit. And I wish that life was that easy in general, but unfortunately, like when I do research, it's not that simple. I'd love to know what kind of research this dude's doing.
Right.
I'm doing it wrong, obviously.
He's clearly reading just a very, very tiny selection of scholars because he doesn't know any better, or he's intentionally avoiding the hard work.
Yeah,
of engaging with
bias, so that works for him, and if it sells books, then even better.
Yes, even better. Don't do that, you guys. That's the wrong way to do it. Would it be preferable if I donate money to you instead of buying your book? Or I don't know. I mean, you could join the Patreon. You could buy a channel membership. There's ways, right? You could buy a course. Those are a little bit more money, but you get something very worthwhile from that.
Yeah, the course sounds amazing. I really need to think about doing that.
Oh, okay. So I'm really excited about it. I was contacted yesterday. The manager of the religion department contacted me yesterday to get my approval on offering a group discount, because there's somebody contacted them and said they have a group of 8 to 12 people who want to take the course. I was like, wow, like,
awesome.
That's quite a few.
Yeah,
so,
that's a built-in group right there.
Exactly. So I mean that's above what the number of people have. I don't know what the current sign up is. Yeah, but it sounds like it's pretty popular so far. So everyone, if you want to, wow, yeah, okay, I see. We have to do this now, don't we?
Oh shoot, I didn't.
Word for word.
Wow.
Yes,
Sorry, I forgot to even you showed me all the media before.
Oh,
I didn't do a damn
that's okay.
thing.
We can make up for it now.
Kip Davis has written no books.
Goose egg.
What I have this.
Kip
one.
Davis has written no book.
That's the better one.
We feature, William Lane Craig is not a crazy person. But we do get plenty of those around here as well. I don't know if you've ever, if you're at all familiar with this guy, Ryan.
Unless they're a person who's really into the fashion industry and is obsessed with shoes, you never see feet or shoes on a ghost.
Isn't he an Egyptologist or something, or calls himself one?
Yeah. Yes.
You never see. Did he say you never see shoes on a ghost?
You never see feet
You never
on a ghost.
I mean, speak for yourself, sir. My ghosts have feet, thank you.
Really? Wow. Oh, my chat is my chat is very interested in this now, Ryan. There's these chats.
This is what I printed on my golf balls, by the way. I do what I hate. I don't do what I want to do. I print them on all my golf balls.
Huh? I do what I hate. I don't do what I want to do.
And apparently you write that on your golf balls.
I write that on my golf balls when I play golf, because I'm rich and I play golf all the time.
Yes.
Congratulations, fella.
Right. Good for you.
Yeah.
All right. Let's call it a day. I think I have redirected. It's early. It's not starting yet, but I did put a redirect for this show to Toast to Toast tonight over on Apology Alive. Which is a fun thing to do on a Friday night. When Apology Alive is on, it saves me from watching the now disgraced Egyptologist. Because if he's not on, then I fall into sin and and temptation, and I go and I hate watch his live streams just because I have a problem. No, not that. But I have a problem. I have a problem.
Just hate.
So,
you love to hate him.
Yeah, it's true. But the good news is not tonight. Apology is on tonight. So the redirect is for Apology, but it doesn't start for a couple of hours yet, unfortunately. Make better choices, Kip.
Just do it. It's
hard.
easy.
It's hard when you're me.
It's supposed to be easy. You just say it and then you do it, and that's just how easy life is.
I don't know. It's not, whatever. I don't know. Okay. So anyways, do you tell us some things? Take some time to pitch and to shill and to talk about yourself and where people can find you and what you're doing and what you like to do, and if you have anything that's coming up that you're doing.
Okay.
Let us know, Ryan. Here, let's make you big.
Oh, make me big.
There you go. Yeah.
Come here. Okay, so I am Ryan Fantastic. I'm in the chat as a goddess, so that's my handle if you want to find me here on YouTube. And as I said previously, I am a deconstructing former Jehovah's Witness, and that was about 5 years ago. So I have been like kind of doing this unwinding thing for 5 years about now, but I still find myself having revelations on a regular basis when it comes to like who I am as a person, like who I identify as, because I was pretty much indoctrinated to be a specific person. So now I'm really, through my content, figuring out who I am, what I actually think about the world, and you know, meeting new people, getting acquainted with ideas that are just so far out of this world for me as somebody who grew up in a little bubble. So that's what my content is about, just following my journey. I love to talk about, as I said previously, the mythology that kind of inspired the Bible or vice versa, especially and specifically Canaanite, Asherah, Baal Hadad, Anat, Athtar, all of those guys. I love them so much. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you might enjoy my content. Sometimes silly things. I like to get into little skits and stuff. It's kind of like, that's actually a lot of times when I do the skits, it's like my brain trying to work through some kind of trauma almost. So don't read too much into it now when you see my content. But that is kind of how I work through stuff. And sometimes it's very like dark or sardonic, but it makes me laugh, and maybe it will make you laugh too and not feel so alone. So
nice.
Follow me. Don't you want to follow me?
Yeah, of course you do.
Of course you
Cool.
do.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kip. I had a wonderful night.
Yay.
Yeah.
And you'll come back next week too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We'll do something else. I think I'm playing tag right now with Doc Dino, and we might do something about dinosaurs and the Bible. But we'll see. I'd like to do that next week. I'm not sure just yet, but we'll figure something out. So but for me, tomorrow I will be over at Dapper Dinosaur's channel like I usually am, you know, doing something probably super dumb there. That is at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock Eastern, I think. I think it's at 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific. And I'll be there with Vish. And then on Sunday, I am going to be on Bad Science Sunday with Maya Atkinson and Dr. Tapioca Weasel, who is my favorite astrophysicist, Weasels, and my co-host for my Saturday night show, which isn't happening this week. It'll happen next week. So, and then I will be back on Thursday next for another episode of Kiriati Breed, which is my Hebrew readings show. And I'm excited because my special guest this week will be New York Times bestselling author, Dr. Dan McClellan. Yes.
Exciting.
It'll be his first time on my Hebrew reading show. So yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So we've done a few things together before, but we've never done that. So I'm super stoked. He was teaching Hebrew. He teaches his own Hebrew classes too. He was teaching Hebrew for a while on Thursday nights and was unable to make it. So he's been freed up now. So he's going to be there on Thursday. So that starts at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. And I think that is everything for me, from us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And yeah, as always, be good, stay safe, and Ha Tikva.